Okay, so now we are going to be working with our green screen material. And if you look at what really good green screen looks like, for example, let's take a look at here. You can see how smooth and clear the background is. So I kind of intentionally have it to be like this in a way so that we have something to work with that has a little bit of trouble because we don't always have the facilities to, this kind of thing here has like a very beautiful, clear green screen. There's a lot of space between the talent and the background. And that's really kind of what we're going for. And the background is lit really, really well and evenly. The footage we have, it looks like this. Now, you'll be surprised at the decent kind of quality we can get with this. But if you have the facilities, and we don't really have the amount of lights that it requires to do something like that or like this, but we'll still do pretty well with this. But you have to do a few workarounds. And so what are we going to do? The first thing I want to do is we clearly have this big shadow here, and we have this box over here, and there's a cable in the shot. So what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to create a garbage mask. So I'm going to just click on this layer, and I'm just going to mask out this area here that I'm not going to be using. Okay, let me take a different tool here so we can stretch this out. Let's make it a little smaller so I can see my whole frame. Okay, and now I'm going to come under here. I'm going to change this to be inverted because I'm going to be masking out that background. I want to see our talent here. And the next thing I want to do is get rid of this side over here. And so I'm going to create another mask. Select the layer, go to our mask, and let's go over here. Why am I doing this? Oh, by the way, it didn't disappear, so you might have to change it from add to subtract. And so now that gets rid of that little thing over here. And we're going to apply keyframe, or it's called key light 1.2. You take this and you drop that on here. And by default, nothing really happens, okay? And what you have to do is you have to take this little screen color eyedropper and show it the color that you want to mask out. And look at that. By default, it immediately goes away. And that looks pretty good. However, when we start to look a little bit closer, we're going to see what the problems are. And so take a look at where it says final result. If I change that to show me the screen matte, now take a look at this. This is where it's showing you how well your key is actually going. So my key is not doing great because this needs to be solid white and that needs to be solid black. So based on that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to twirl down where it says screen matte, and I'm going to mess with the clip black first to make the black be blacker. I'm not worried at all about anything that exists inside of our masks. Okay, and so I'm going to change the black so that I don't see any kind of white artifacts. But I can see that he doesn't look that good here. So now I'm going to go to clip white, and I'm going to change it just until it looks like it's a perfectly clean white mask. And you can see over here his shoulders still has some stuff going on in it. So let's clip it out a little bit more until that's all gone. Okay, and I want you to notice also the quality of the edges here, which we're going to address later on. But right now, that you can see that it looks a little harsh. Okay, and again, this is a problem only if I need that part of the frame. So now I can go back to my final result, and I can see what he's looking like. Okay, let's go ahead and put something in the background just so that we have some objects back there. Okay, so here he exists in the tundra. And this actually worked out pretty well because if you're looking at the color quality, does he look like he belongs in that space? And by the way, once I have him keyed out, I can then, change this. And also, if you don't want to see those mask lines, you could just click on this little thing and that hides those mask lines, so you don't have to be distracted by that. But now with my scale, I can change the size of him. Maybe I want to place him over here and scale him down a little bit more. So all that stuff still works. So position-wise, I can start having him fly around. Okay, but for now, let's make him bigger because I want to see him in the frame. Okay, and the color quality actually looks pretty good. Does he look like he belongs in this space? And here's how we are going to try to make that look like it is a little bit more fluid into that space. I've already applied 3 masks to this. I have this one out here, the one on the side, and one right below him over here. And now I have applied key light. I take my little eyedropper and let's go ahead and drop it in there. The first thing I'm going to do is change this to screen matte within the effect control window because I want to make sure that his matte looks really good. And it doesn't yet, so let's pull down the screen matte and we're going to adjust the white. Actually, I might do black first to get the black really good. And now I can do white. You want to go just to the point where like the problem areas disappear. So I'm going to go with that, and we see that little gray area here, and we can't really clip our way out of that, so we're going to deal with that in a different way. But now I'm going to go back to my final result and see what he looks like. Okay, and here I'm going to use this as my background. I'm going to select this guy here. So he clearly doesn't belong in that space, and we're going to have to use our levels once again. But before we go there, I want to show you what's going on here. So here's what the guy looks like, and we can kind of see some shadow underneath him here. And we're going to need, this is where it's going to be time consuming. So you might want to use just no more than 2 or 3 seconds of this shot. Also, the sky is going backwards. So first let's fix the sky. Select the layer, go to time reverse, and so now the sky is going the right way. Okay, so what I want to do now though is I want to find a good portion. See how his hand's dripping down there? I don't want to have to deal with that, so I'm going to find a spot. So maybe I want to use, let's double click it and find the spots that we want to use. So I'm going to see how his hand falls out here. So all we have to do is really just kind of move that out of the way. So maybe I want to, oh, it goes even further, so I'm going to have to change that mask a little bit more so that it doesn't interfere. Okay, so let's see. I want to start from where he's looking ahead, make that an endpoint, and I'll just go, let's see, that's 21 seconds. Let's just say I'm going to go to 26. And we'll go ahead and edit this part here and go back to our composition window. And now let's take a look at what's going on here. All right, so I'm not dealing with the colors yet. That's an issue that we have to deal with, but I am going to have to deal with this stuff here. And again, this is where it's going to be time consuming. So I'm going to select the pen tool and I'm going to create a mask. Now notice I have Roto Bezier turned on, and what that does is it automatically sort of curves it for me, so initially it's not going to be so troublesome. And with that mask, let's go ahead and again hit subtract. And so this is what we're going to have to do here. We're going to start from wherever that was, and I might need to add a couple of points. But before I go further, we're going to turn on the mask path animation. And now I'm going to go page down to animate this mask. Wherever I see a problem, page down one at a time. Which is why you don't want to have too many frames if you don't need them. So this mask has to animate. So we're losing his thumb here, so let's go back. And go through your shot by frame, looking at where your problems lay. Okay, so I'm not going to do the whole thing for now, but that gives you an idea of what I'm expecting. So you're going to have to animate this mask when you get to this shot, okay? Now, The next thing I want you to take a look at is his color, and I showed you how to do the color, but more at the moment what I want to do is I want to talk about the edges of him. So there is another thing in here called a matte suppressor, or it's called a matte choker. And if I take that matte choker and put it on here, by default, look what happens. If I turn that on and off, you'll see that it immediately gets rid of it, and it's pretty good. So this one I sometimes just leave the default setting, but if you want to play with the settings, you can try that as well. Sometimes you're also going to get some green spill from the reflection. We didn't really white balance, so he looks kind of orange, so we don't really have to worry about that in this situation. But if you have some instances where you're seeing some green come in, so if you come under here and type spill suppressor, you can apply a spill suppressor, and then you would come in here and you would select, let's go ahead and turn off our effect for a minute, and if I go into the spill suppressor, show it green, and then go back into our guy here, you can see what it looks like with that on and off. Let's turn it on and off. We're not seeing much change because he doesn't really have any green on him. He's kind of yellow. All right, so those are the tools that you have available. So what I'm going to do now, instead of using the levels, I'm going to play around with the curves in a similar way that we did with levels. So I'm going to take curves, I'm going to apply it to him. And first thing I want to do is, before I get into the individual red, green, and blue, let's just try to make him not quite so bright. Okay, so the top part here is going to give us closer to the bright parts of the frame. So I'm going to make him a little bit darker here. Okay, and he's looking pretty red. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select red, and I'm going to kind of bring down a little bit of the red. Then I can just do blue. So now we're kind of doing it by eye, and let's take a look at the green, and let's go back to RGB, and maybe I need to kind of darken them up a little bit here. Alright, so here's what he looks like now. So here's without it, and here's with it, and so I think he looks a little bit more natural in that environment here. I honestly would spend a lot more time to do that kind of thing, but I just kind of want to show you that there are different tools. You don't always have to use levels, curves, or hue and saturation to do it, but be very conscious to see, does it look like it matches? I still think there's a little bit too much red in here, so maybe let's go ahead and bring down the red a little bit more. Or in order to get rid of the red, sometimes you have to boost the opposites. Let's go to green. And that kind of gives you some tools to work with.